Good evening. Is that on? Yeah. Good evening. Uh, Good evening to my colleagues and audience members. My name is Ed Reisinger. I'm the chairman of the Land Use and Transportation Committee for the Baltimore City Council. We're here this evening to conduct our 15th work session on City Council Bill 12-0152, Transform Baltimore Zoning. During our 14th work session held on Monday, September 29th, we completed Titles 9 and 10 on pages 139 through 166. Tonight we will begin our review of Title 11, Industrial District, starting on line 1 of page 167, and work on as much as we can during today's session in 2 hours. Can you hear me? Yeah. The Land Use and Transportation Committee intends to work progressively through the bills by reviewing it page by page and continuing through the bill in the order it is written. City agencies and public will be asked to participate by raising their questions or comments as the committee is discussing the page they have a comment or question regarding. Just for everyone to realize, this is a work session. It is not a hearing of testimony. I also encourage everyone to visit the City's Council website, which is www.baltimorecity.council.com, in order to stay updated with the section of the bill that the Land Use and Transportation Committee is working on at each work session. In addition to the currently scheduled series of work sessions, the Land Use and Transportation Committee will likely hold additional hearings and work sessions. Information about those will be distributed to the public as soon as dates, times, and topics are selected. Again, please check the Baltimore City Council's website for the most up-to-date information. If you are unable to attend the scheduled work session and you wish to provide written comments and amendments, please mail to the Office of Council Services. Attention to Jennifer Coates, to my right, at 100 North Holiday Street, Baltimore, Maryland, 21202, or you can email Jennifer at jennifer.coates@baltimorecity.gov. One of my ground rules is please turn off all your cell phones, iPhones, to give courtesy and respect to those who are going to testify. I just want to acknowledge some of my colleagues. To my far left is Councilman Ricky Spector. To her right is Councilman Bill Henry. Second to my left is Councilwoman Mary Pat Clark. To my immediate left is Councilman Jim Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We are also joined by new councilman from the 11th District, Councilman Eric Costello. Also, we have Mr. John Willis, who is the consultant to the committee. We have Angela Gibson in the audience, who's representing Mayor Stephanie Rollins Blake. And also to my right is Ms. Kara Kunst, who is representing the President of City Council, Bernard Jack Young. And the most important person on this committee is the staff person, Ms. Jennifer Coates. So if you turn, on page 167, Title 11, Industrial District, if anyone has any amendments regards to or concerns or issues in regards to the bill, the text, the maps, or the tables, just raise your hand so you come up and speak at the podium. Again, this is a work session. It's not a hearing. So at this time, before we go into page 167, the Planning Department has a presentation in regards to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to repeat
You want to introduce yourself, please?
my name is Laurie Feinberg with the Planning Department, and I'm joined by Jill Lemke, our Industrial Area Planner. We're not going to repeat the presentation we gave to the Council at the formal hearing on Title 11, but I would like to bring up some of the highlights of this chapter. As you recall, this committee met out in the 11th District at Ben Franklin Masonville Cove High School and had an in-depth hearing on the industrial. But just to give you a brief version, I think business and industry has changed very dramatically since 1971, the date of our current code, and we believe this chapter, Title 11, is really a strong attempt to make sure that our zoning code keeps up with the changes in business and industry. So it is a new approach to zoning and some industrial districts that we did not see in 1971. To give an example, the current code written in 71 had 3 categories: M1, M2, M3, light, heavy, and heavier industry. Real simple. Did not really deal with some of the intricacies and nuances of modern day businesses, and also some of the neighborhoods and that sort of thing. So in our new approach, and this really was drafted as a result of numerous working groups and meetings with the property owners, with the businesses, with the folks in these buildings and doing this work, many of them who are here tonight to testify as well. We tried to make sure that this code strengthens our industrial areas and also provides opportunities for those startup industries, that new business, the maker space, as it's now called, that flex space, the research, because we know that we're seeing an important need for that job growth in Baltimore City is coming from small businesses, and we need to make sure they have the right tools for the job, so to speak. So this code has 6 industrial categories. It has the heavy and light industry. They are called I-1 and I-2. They are greatly simplified from the current code, and they really focus on the difference in impact. So light industry means it's making something that happens inside a building, and heavy industry has outdoor impact. So obviously if it's noise or dirt or things that need to happen outside, that's a heavy industry area, and inside a building where it can be shielded and not seen is considered light industry. We have recommended that the current Maritime Industrial Overlay Zone, also known as MIZOD, become a base zone. So under the current zone, MIZOD is M3 with restrictions, an overlay of restrictions. What we did is take essentially that language, and instead of saying M3 minus a list of things, which is what it says now, we made it a base zone. It's called MI in the new code, Maritime Industrial. The boundaries are identical to the current MIZOD, but it becomes a base zone. We also recommended more stringent standards, this was discussed in Title IV, for rezoning or making a zoning change if it is an MI zone. So there's a higher bar to be set if someone wants to change property from MI to something other than that. The newer categories are industrial mixed use. Our nickname for that is the Loft District. This is a recognition that we have a lot of older industrial buildings throughout the city, through our Jones Falls Valley, for example, and everywhere throughout the city that are currently industrially zoned. That is limiting their reuse because they're multi-level buildings. They're the older style. Modern industry wants the one-story buildings. But these buildings are turning to be very valuable for the startups, for that maker space, for that cabinet maker, for the artisan. So the industrial mixed use is that blend of uses that allows folks to live there, to do the live work and do that type of business, but to also have the light industry and the manufacturing. And we think it'll be a strong tool in reuse of older buildings in the city. Also new in the industrial is a bioscience category that really is rather unique, and one of course, Baltimore's, one of Baltimore's real strengths in terms of new and growing businesses, of course, is our bioscience, and we created a base zone for the bioscience. The third new category is called Office Industrial Campus, and that is a little bit your office industrial park, so to speak. We have numerous ones, but we've never had the right zoning for them. They're always a bit of a hybrid. Examples would be your Seton Business Park, Holabird Industrial Park, Park Circle. These are very important to our businesses. We have a lot of jobs in these areas. And the difference with the campus zone is it recognizes that they're a grouping of buildings, typically not a standalone. And they have the appropriate setbacks and greenery and some of the flexibility and uses that you would see in a park. So that's a very, very quick overview of some of our industrial zones. We have all the maps available. If there's questions from committee members or as testimony comes up, I can put the relevant map up. But essentially, just to guide the councilman in looking, this is the first district, and I put that up because it does have examples of multiple categories of zoning. The indigo purple along the waterfront is showing the overlay of the MIZOD on the dark purple industrial. The lighter purple would be the transitional or the I-2, and in some cases the I-1. The pink is the office industrial campus, and then there's a blue that is the industrial mixed use. It's actually the lighter blue. The darker blue up there, the Bayview campus, is the hospital zone. So it's a tad confusing. The light blue is that rectangle that's currently the Crown Court and Seal building, one of the examples of the industrial mixed use, which is kind of that perfect blend of maker space as well as artisans and craftsmen. So we can have the ability to zoom in if there's questions or bring up. I have the entire city, all 14 districts here, so we can zoom in as needed.
Okay. Bill, Jim? Yeah. Councilman Kraft?
You're saying the MI zone and the MIZOD, the boundaries are exactly the same?
Yes.
When I looked at the map on the north end, let me find that map that I was on.
I'm sorry. There may have been one or two properties that in our mapping we recognized had been mapped MIZOD, but because they don't touch the water, they're not by definition deep water access, we left them as heavy industry and not MI.
So you're
so
talking
I don't want to say it's
about
100%, it's 99.9% the same.
So properties that are, say, north or in like the Clinton Street, Boston Street area, I'm looking at map 12A. Mm-hmm. It looks like the MI district no longer goes up to Boston Street. It looks like it's ending down.
It never went to Boston Street.
Gotta use the microphone, because this is being recorded, so you need to.
Canton Crossing was, at the time the MISOD was enacted, was currently a PUD, so it was never included in the MISOD.
I have an email, just recent email, that says that in one area it goes to Boston Street. I'll pull it and show it to somebody. I'm not going to go through the argument here, but I have an email.
There were a couple properties where the way our real property worked, there's some very oddball property lines that had a few little tails, and the rail lines that went north that may have touched Boston Street. But as you can see from the map, the purple stops about 3 blocks below
No,
Boston
I see
Street.
where the purple stops in the map, and that's my concern when I look at some of the I-2 usages that are going right up against the MISOD, potential usages when I looked at the I-2.
I-2 is very comfortably compatible with the MISOD. It is also an industrial zone.
Well, when we get to the uses, I'll go through it. I'm not going to,
Okay.
okay? All right, thank you.
Okay, so my question is, like, regards to the MISOD, like in my district in Curtis Bay, some of those, the companies that are on Curtis Avenue, they're not by the water, but they're still staying as the MISOD, or are they going to, like, IMU? I mean, which,
I'm having trouble scrolling here. Let me, okay. The properties, I'm trying to get to the 10th district here.
yeah. It's right off Curtis Avenue, like Ben Hill and some of them. There's companies there that's in the MISOD.
Typically, again, if the property does not touch deep water, it's not in the MISOD, it still is likely to be industrially zoned. There we go.
Okay.
But there may be, I'm not sure where you want me to zoom in here.
I mean, I'll check into those maps to make sure, on that. You have any questions? No. Eric, you got any? No, good. Okay, thank you. We will now go on page 167. As I said earlier, if you have any amendments or questions on the bill, on each page, whether it's the text, the tables, or the maps, just raise your hand so we can have you come to the Pat Clark.
The South Baltimore Business Alliance sent a lot of amendments, including in Title 11, and I just happened to notice that they start in the next page. So can we ask if a couple, can they just sit there?
Yeah, when we get to that page, as we've done in the past,
Yeah.
I already talked to them and some of the other industry. When we get to that page where they have their amendments, they just could come up to the podium and
Oh, okay,
discuss their amendments. We're not changing anything.
okay,
Okay.
gotcha.
So, no one has any questions or amendments to page 167? Okay. Says, do you have this?
Oh, may I say? Mr. Chairman, I know you kindly look to me for amendments, but in this chapter, my amendments are all of the tables, the permitted uses, et cetera. And I know that we are not taking up the tables along with the chapters, but doing, We are on this one? Oh, great. Well then, tell me when you're at tables.
All right, does everyone on the committee understand we're gonna do the tables?
Gonna do the use tables, and I presume, since we're doing that, we'll also do the, well, I didn't do them. What we should look at then, no, we're not doing design standards, but the, yard and any of bulk tables after the permitted and, okay, thank you. Sorry.
We are now on page 168, 11-203.
Planning has one amendment on that page. And that is on section 11. This is from the joint agency report, 11-204 and 205, to correct, to delete the word office from that general description of
Okay.
Industry. That would be on line 21, and then again on 30, yes.
30.
21 and 30, delete the word office,
So basically, if I may,
which I believe is consistent with the Business Alliance's amendments.
SBBA,
It is
SBBA,
11204 subtitle B, line 21, and 11205 subtitle B, line 30. In both cases, delete the
Right.
word office.
and they take more than that. Here we are.
Good afternoon. My name's Jeff
Wait,
Fraley.
Wait, are you done? So you're on page 168, 21 and 30, is that what your question?
Yes.
Is that amendment 11-3 in your amendments?
Can I take it?
Yeah,
Okay, you
because
wanna
I
take
don't have
mine?
any amendments.
You wanna take
Okay.
mine?
I'll trade you back later.
Okay,
Okay, I got all the three.
thanks,
SBBA.
thank you. Sure. Councilman Kraft?
Yep. Good afternoon. My name's Jeff Fraley. I'm a third-generation owner and operator of an industrial contracting company in South Baltimore. I'm here tonight representing the South Baltimore Business Alliance. The SBBA is a business coalition in South Baltimore which consists of manufacturers, transporters by way of rail and road and water, and related service providers. I'd first like to thank the Land Use and Transportation Committee tonight for allowing us to be such a big part of the process. I know it's been years in the making. The planning department's done a terrific job with this. They've communicated with us over the past few years, and we can't thank you enough for that. We do support City Council Bill 12-0152. And with that said, we've also submitted some amendments tonight and some explanation behind these amendments and comments that I'd like to talk about right now. So we're on section 11204, I-1 Light Industrial District. The SBBA has proposed to strike in section B, as well as office and research and development.
Oh, I'm in the wrong book, right?
Okay, that's page 168, that's line 21?
Yes.
You don't have it, you don't have it.
I have lines in here.
I don't have lines, but I just saw
It
Priscilla's.
is.
It is
We-
line 21.
We've got it marked in
Right.
the text, actually. You've got to call it out. Page 168, line 21 and line 30. He's 21 and 30. There's a deletion of the phrase,
Yeah. Okay, you got that? We good? Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Jeff, you got
Any
And what
questions?
did you
168, yeah.
Did you explain the
Sure.
reason?
We've got lengthy explanation here, but
Well, but
we feel that office and research and development centers, it's a very ambiguous term. Right now, in the current zoning code, it's permitted, or I'm sorry, it's not permitted in M1, M2, or M3. We feel that if offices like what's being described here become permitted in these industrial manufacturing areas, or the office tower developers will just be in line waiting to locate on the harbor or on less expensive industrial land, which will result in the push of legitimate industrial manufacturing and maritime uses, just as developers did prior to the MIZOD and prior to the MIZOD overlay legislation.
Yeah, okay, but the companies that's there now that has their own research and development, they're okay, you're good with that?
Good with that, and I'd also like to add the caveat that we do support an accessory component of existing industrial uses, so, and we'll go ahead and use Domino's Sugar since it's used so popularly. If a Domino's Sugar wanted to build an office to support their industrial use, we certainly support that.
Okay,
We concur with the Business Alliance on this, and it's consistent with our amendment. And I think the accessory office component is handled in the tables to meet the business needs, the Domino and that sort of thing.
Councilman Henry?
Thank you very much. Less for Jeff than for planning. I'm curious about something that's outside my district, but I think it's I think it's Councilman Stokes or Councilman Branch's district. There's some I think of as industrial areas that are still or were still zoned as such, down around like 25th Street.
Yeah, they're mine.
Okay. Oh,
That's
they?
in the- That's in the 14th, like Cloverland. Oh,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
And
Yes.
Lots of warehouses and stuff like that. Are those still going to be zoned light industrial? Would they be zoned I-1 in the current?
Typically, yes, most of those areas. I mean, we could get into the specifics. A lot of that area is still I-1, the lighter industry, and some of it may be the industrial mixed use, depending on the nature of the building and where it sits. There's a few sections of East 25th Street that are C4, which is the heavy auto usage area. So
Well, I'm just
generally, yes.
because I mean I'm definitely sympathetic to the situation Jeff is describing, where you don't want to lose what is valued industrial space to office.
Right.
But in places where there has been no desire to do actual industry, but office has moved in to take advantage of the fact that those warehouses are largely empty. Is the resolution of that to rezone those?
It
don't
really
have
becomes a mapping
my
issue.
maps.
I think you're correct. It is a mapping, and it's somewhat based on the specifics of the area. The Cloverland is really a healthy industrial area. That's functioning. It
Right.
works, and is intended to stay light industry.
Along 25th Street to Lock Raven. It's
Right,
solid.
and some of those other areas have different transitional zones like the C4 or the IMU that are more permissive in office uses. So
I just
again, I
remembered-
think we'd
okay.
have to zoom in on the specific geography, but yes, we totally agree.
I remember now what sparked this. It was an effort a few years back to move a school into the old Coca-Cola.
And indeed, it did, and we
Yes.
rezoned.
It was an effort, and so we want to. Is that what we would do?
And actually under the new code, that building could have been an industrial mixed use. It's kind of a classic in that it's a multi-level former industrial building, and it would have permitted the school under the industrial mixed use.
Okay, so we're going to deal with those as map problems and not
Yeah,
as-
they really are map issues.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair, if
Thank
I
you.
could say so, my colleague raises a very good issue that we could probably handle with IMU. North of Cloverland, when you get, for example, there are industrial buildings on Lock Raven that meet the description you're giving. Some of them most of them are operational, but some of them are still vacant. And it probably takes a second look, if doing this, to move them from like an I-1 to an IMU. But given some of the use changes that you'll see in my proposed amendments,
Excuse me.
for IMU.
Would it be too much of a burden on the land use committee to think about any zoning request, any zoning change request within an I district, to have it listed as a conditional ordinance so that it would come to you folks for the final approval?
We're going to get to, oh, excuse me.
We're going to get to that to the table.
Okay.
which
We're going to get to
Okay.
those tables.
Right.
Because that's part of what you've submitted.
Okay.
Okay. Jeff, you're finished with page 168?
I am.
Okay, so is anyone else in the audience wishes to, this has a work session? I mean, this is a work session. Anyone else has amendments or questions on 168? Yeah. Jeff, you can sit right there if you wish. I know you have some amendments. Yes.
Comment relates to IMU.
Can you introduce your,
Bill Cunningham for the Great Remington
Pull
community.
the microphone down.
My comment has to do with the IMU, and it starts with intent. And Laurie has done Ms. Feinberg has done a very good.
you're talking about 168. page.
168, it's IMU.
Pull it down.
Industrial,
Ms. Feinberg,
mixed
you
use.
mean.
Ms. Feinberg brought this wonderful zone to us a long time ago, and it sounds wonderful. Light industrial use, and then all of a sudden, when you look at what she gave us, we got things next to our row homes, so it doesn't seem like this intent, which is being publicized here, is exactly the intent that is what is occurring. And I'm concerned about this because if you look at the community of Remington, it probably got more IM use zones, properties, than probably any district
In my district.
in the city of Baltimore. And certainly far outnumbers all the communities that surrounds us. So we got a tremendous amount of IMUs in our community.
He's right.
And with the intent, and we were, oh yeah, great, we'll have live work. And that's what's always being said about this, live work. But then you look into it, and what do you get? Heavy retail across from row homes. Major automotive repair across from row homes. We got dumped. And I'm wondering if, and you all think I'm nuts, but if this wasn't a planned discriminatory action by the planning department on the Remington community by dumping possible future sales and service needs by our more affluent neighbors into our community. Why did we get stuck with so many IMUs when we don't even fit where are the 4 and 5 and 6 story buildings in Remington's? Most of these are 1-story industrial buildings. And if you watch what happens in the cities such as Locust Point, if you don't zone them so that people come rushing in to put these horrible uses across the street from our houses, they will be redeveloped in a very positive way, but not if you let the towing companies, the lumber yards come into our community. There's something wrong with that zone, and I think the council people should look at why that zone, and I'm sorry, but I called it this. We got brought a bag of candy, and when we opened it up, we found a bunch of crap with candy sprinkled on the top of it. Now, that's what happened to us.
Okay, thank you for your testimony. This is why it's called a work session. Anyone else has amendments or questions? Good.
Good evening, everyone. Al Barry here on behalf of the Baltimore Development Work Group. May surprise you, don't have a specific property in play here dealing with IMU, but I am here to encourage the council to keep the principle of an IMU district in the Transform Baltimore Code. As many of you may know, we have been working with the Urban Land Institute and the National Trust for Historic Preservation on adaptive reuse techniques. We're one of a few pilot cities around the country that are looking at zoning, building code, any number of techniques to encourage adaptive reuse. And we believe strongly that the IMU provision, as it's written, would do that and not necessarily require rezoning to allow for transition areas or zones that it could be done. It seems like some of the comments have to do with whether the maps are right. That's a different issue. But I would not throw the baby out on this situation and be careful about too many restrictive amendments, which really would defeat the purpose of having these zones be legitimate transition zones for neighborhoods that could be a variety of mixed uses. Thank you. That's all I have, unless you have any questions.
May I say? Did you want to say that? Because I'm going to say.
Good, Councilwoman.
I just agree. I think that's very, very salient because
Got to talk in the microphone.
I think that's a very important preservation that we need to keep in this transformed Baltimore.
Councilwoman Clark.
Let me say that I will concede that in my district, the 14th district of Baltimore City, Remington has more IMU square feet than any place else in the city. So that is indeed, than any place else in my district. But I would say, just by way of preparation for reviewing the uses that are going to be permitted, conditional by the board and conditional by the city council, this is a zone, this IMU is a new zone that's supposed to work with residential areas. And there are some heavy uses that are being recommended as permitted that I do not agree should be. We will have our moment to go through each and every one of them at this work session. And I just want to say, some of them are not appropriate for something that's supposed to be integrated into a residential area.
Nothing's carved in stone.
Right. I just wanted to say that so you don't leave early.
I might be leaving early regardless of that discussion later on. However, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Some uses that would be legitimate in certain neighborhoods that are IMU may not be legitimate in a Remington where the mapping, maybe the IMU is inappropriate. I'm not here to take a position one way or the
I
other.
hear what you're saying.
So just, from BDW's standpoint, I think this upcoming report, please pay attention holistically to, and I know the council will look at this closely. The report's going to be released in another month or so, as I recall, to look at these types of flexible provisions, which are new, may not be, what people are used to. Maybe there's fine tuning, either through uses or what has to be debated through a conditional use process. We're not here to go line by line on that, but just the principle of keeping this in. And if it's a mapping issue, well, then you'll get to that on a neighborhood-by-neighborhood basis. But don't make it so restrictive that all neighborhoods are then penalized just because you don't think IMU can work in Remington or some other neighborhood.
It's very, very, very well taken. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on page 168?
Chris.
Yes, Councilman, I'm prompted. Chris Rye from the Southeast Community Development Corporation. Prompted to come up because of this discussion. First, I want to be on record that very unusually, I agree with my predecessor, Al Barry, on this issue. And with all due respect to Councilwoman, we as a community development corporation and as the manager of one of the 3 arts and entertainment districts in the city of Baltimore, we are in the business of working around the edge of healthy markets, and we need every tool that we can get to stimulate development. And there may be legitimate concerns in the Remington community about controlling development, but we believe that the IMU, as it is now configured with numerous conditional use opportunities, to be a very useful tool to stimulate development in a transitional area or on the edge of a market where we might not normally be able to do that. So we would be very concerned with the concerns in Remington tarnishing the power and effectiveness of the flexibility that the IMU zone represents.
Okay.
Oh,
Thank you.
may I, Mr. Chairman?
And the
Chris,
council-
wait, Stephanie Murdoch, who had to leave, oh, no, she didn't, does have a copy of my own recommendations around uses in this district, and I hope you'll get a copy. I mean, I don't think it's necessary to have major vehicle service and repair shop, for example, as a permitted use in order for the arts to flourish.
Well, as you know, many artists today are in the heavy metal business.
Oh,
so
very good, touche.
I'm not sure that that would be inappropriate.
Okay, well, we have time to think about how to integrate the concepts.
Thank you, Councilman.
All right? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks. Anyone else on page 168?
Yeah, it was.
Since we're going- My name is Joe McNeely. I represent the Central Baltimore Partnership. We work with the 10 neighborhoods in Central Baltimore, which include Charles North, Greenmount West, and Remington, which have a lot of the zone, as well as Old Goucher, Harwood, Charles Village, Able, which has some of the zone as well. In some ways, Station North is a poster child for this conversion. And in general, we think this is a wonderful idea to have this new category. At the same time, I think that one of the things we're trying to get away from in this mixed zone is rigid rules that kind of lock us in to uses. And so I think the devil is in the detail of what's a conditional use and how the uses play out. So I think a lot of this is much more textured in the tables, and we need to get to that. And I think those of us that are going to raise questions about the tables should not be categorized as being against this kind of zone. I think we had the experience of the PUD in Greenmount West, and so I just want to be on record as saying that we'll bring a lot of issues about the tables. That doesn't mean we're recommending in any way that page 168 be changed in the general language. And just because we're in support of the general language doesn't mean we don't have any suggestions as to the tables. I think this zone needs some way of being very, very flexible. And various levels of conditional uses give us ways to do that.
Okay. Councilman Kraft, then Councilman Henry.
No, Joe, I think that, I agree with you. I think that the IMU language in the text is fine. I think, where we're address these concerns, at least for me, is when we get into the tables. What we're going to permit, what is going to be conditional, all of that sort of stuff. I think we can deal with virtually all these concerns when we get there.
I do too.
Where's your tables at?
My tables are in the handout.
Okay, all right.
I got, you have.
Okay,
Sure.
All right.
Done?
Yeah. Councilman Henry?
Thank you. I'm going to take this opportunity to repeat a position I have taken at earlier hearings. It's a drum I've been banging, but I'm going to continue to bang it until the fat lady has actually sung, and this is all over and it's been done. What Mr. McNeely just pointed out, as far as I'm concerned, is a textbook example of the importance of restoring conditional by ordinance to the zoning code, because that allows us the flexibility to use these kind of tools exactly where they're needed, and it gives us the flexibility to have these citywide, but in a place where you're trying to control development, you can rein it in, and in a place where you're trying to encourage development, you can use it freely. And I hope that we continue to move towards the restoration of that concept, so that that's an option available to us in the tables. Okay. Thank you.
Yes?
Richard Manikin. I'm a partner at Workshop Development. We are adaptive reuse developers in the city of Baltimore and are very supportive of the IMU and the transitional nature of the zoning that it brings. Flexibility is critical to us when we looked at mixed-use adaptive reuse, and conditional use is important because it gives us flexibility. And when we go in and we look at multi-story buildings that haven't been occupied for years and look at projects like Woodbury and say the vibrancy of that community is the entertainment, is the restaurants, is the office space, is the maker space, is the repair space, is the metal workers, it's the dwelling units. It's everything that makes it a community that is vital and so needed in the community. So please, please, while going through the tables and going through the amendments, keep this in mind. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Page 169. Huh? Yeah, you got to go ahead. Let everybody. Yeah. Okay, anyone has any amendments on page 169?
Councilman Jeff Fraley, again, South Baltimore Business Alliance. In short, I think that the intent of the Maritime Industrial District is to preserve maritime industrial uses, so we simply wanted to add the verbiage of including industrial a few times within this section.
Okay. You have, yeah. You have amendments on this, don't you? I mean, on the intent?
Page 169.
Top of page 169, we amend the strike limited, and we propose to add industrial and maritime industrial use to the section.
Okay, I got this. You would take it back.
And planning is in support of their amendments on top of page 169.
Okay, so,
Delete the word limited.
Delete the word limited?
Correct.
Yes.
Was there to add anything?
Yes, there's a, I don't know if the councilwoman got his amendment, the full paper copy, Councilwoman Spector, but there's a few phrases to be added.
Got it.
yeah, you scratched, you deleted limited, but there's some other ones you're adding, right?
Yep.
Are you adding? Go
Do you
ahead.
have a copy?
Does everyone have a copy?
If not, I've got 10 I can.
I got it, babe. Thanks, Jim.
Good?
You got one? Yeah, okay. Yeah, they're on everybody's desk. So go ahead, Mr. Fraley. You have.
Okay. So yes, we propose to strike limited, and we propose to insert industrial and maritime industrial use, because we believe that the intent of the Maritime Industrial District is also to provide zoning consideration and support for the industrial uses around just the maritime use on the water's edge. We strongly feel that those two uses go hand in hand.
Okay. Councilman Costello?
Thank you. I agree with Jeff's comment. Mr. Chairman, just a suggestion for your consideration. I think limited is confusing in this context, and I think perhaps the intent might have been scarce or hard to come by. Thank you. As opposed to limited.
I think you're right. We're using the word limited as meaning a limited resource of waterfront land.
Does planning have any response or any on his
No,
amendments?
we're fully in support of the amendments and agree with the councilman as well as Mr. Fraley.
Okay. Any other amendments on page 169? Yeah. Councilwoman Clark?
Mr. Chairman, we are at designs, and I think we have in OIC and BSC,
I think
design standards. It's at the bottom of the page.
I thought the committee was not going to talk about design
we're not-
standards
we're not
today.
What I'm saying.
We're not going
Okay.
I'm
to,
about to say that, so we're in agreement that we've agreed that we're not going to do design standards as we go through chapter after title, but we're going to carry them all to one place and work with planning to create a separate either title or a separate enacted document for all the design standards that are interwoven through this land use document. So in other words, I guess what I'm saying, Mr. Chair, is that can we please now skip to,
tables?
No, I
No.
have, I'm sorry, are we still on 169?
well, I'm asking that we go now to page 172 because we're going to bundle up design standards and review all of them as a separate document or title after we've gone through all the regular 19 titles. So
I still had a question about my side.
that's what, oh, I thought it was, oh, it ends at, oh, yes. Can we just go start at page
We're going to tables.
169 to the end of Title 11? Because we'll come back at the end of all this.
174.
Oh, yes, we have to go to Subtitle 6. So through 173, we're skipping, and then we go to 174. Then we would be through the title and into the tables.
So she just gave me this. Which sheet going?
Right? I marked them off.
Want to go to 174?
But I wanted to ask a question about the MyZod before we left that. That's what I meant.
That's She's a
Top of
my
page
side.
169.
Yeah, go ahead, my side question, go ahead.
Where we have the subtitle 3, subtitle 3, is that in essence language that would synonymous to the buffer?
Are you talking about subtitle 3, lines 13 and 14?
Yes.
All that says is refer to the table for the list of uses.
So in terms of
It's just a formality that tells the reader where those uses are.
But when we did the MyZod, we did also identify a buffer zone. What happened to that when we did this?
The buffer zones to the MyZod are typically the other industrial zones, either an I-1 or an I-2. In some rare cases, it may be an IMU as a transition. Those are really map issues, and it varies depending on the nature of the property. That's not a buffer by itself is not a zone. In other words, the buffer is another industrial zone.
It's another industrial zone.
Right, correct.
But
a
in-
lighter industrial zone. So your heaviest is the MyZod, then typically between the MyZod and a residential neighborhood where it worked, either an I-1, an I-2, or a IMU, or in some cases maybe an office campus, is a transition or a buffer.
But in that situation, there might be an opportunity for it to be considered for residential purpose, if it's light industrial.
No, the light industrial does not permit residential. The only one that might be a buffer that permits residential is IMU, and that typically does not really go right up against the MyZod.
That wouldn't be identified as a buffer.
No, typically not.
That's what I thought.
Maybe a few exceptions. There's places where the MyZod is very narrow, and there just frankly are existing houses right next to it. So there may be a handful of exceptions, but generally the transition or the buffer is another industrial zone that does not permit residential.
Councilman Kraft?
To follow up on the councilwoman's concerns, because I share those concerns. Again, I think when we get into the tables, we can look at certain usages, and I'll just pick one off the top. To put a restaurant as a conditional use in an I-2 really creates very quickly a threat on the MISOD.
Non-compatible.
Because you can't. There's no transition if you got a restaurant sitting next to Maryland Overpack. Not to pick on George. Is George here? No, but sitting next to Maryland Overpack when you've got hundreds of trucks going in and out of there all the time, kicking up all the dirt, and the person sitting 10 feet from there is trying to sit outside eating their hamburger and salad, picking all the dirt out of it while the truck is going back and forth.
That's
Doesn't
my
lend for a transitional, a buffer.
Okay, we're certainly open to discuss that. I think in the drafting, the reason for that is the I-2 is very similar to our current industrial, or M2 and M3. And again, the tradition of industry is there's a corner restaurant or a bar, and those things existed. So our reason for leaving them, and again, we are certainly open to that, but our reason for leaving the restaurants in that transitional zone is, frankly, many exist.
But we have to look at the pressures that we are up against today in these MISOD areas, particularly all along the waterfront. I mean,
I'm not disagreeing, but that's why we made them conditional, and it's a recognition that many of these businesses may want to change.
Can I add another potential collision?
Yes, go ahead.
The food wagons that go into areas, the food wagons. They go to industrial parks at mealtime and breakfast and whatever. What would happen in that situation? The food wagons.
They're not zoned.
That would not.
No, that's separate.
Right.
That would not present a problem.
They do not receive zoning permits. They operate on the right-of-way, so that's not an issue.
Okay. We're
Going to the other.
okay. You got that?
Mobile vendor law.
Yeah. Just passed. Okay, we're now on page 174, subtitle 6, other applicable standards.
It doesn't say anything.
No, everything just kicks back.
It's just a reference.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, they all do. Under the mobile vendor thing,
Yeah.
just passed.
They get to,
We just passed. We spent like.
That's the table, right?
well, they're gonna stop to. No, they stop.
They stop.
They stop and cook.
Okay, we're gonna go to tables now.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna go to tables.
Yes.
Okay, now we are gonna go to we're on tables, page 7. Yeah, I was just gonna say that. Page 17, table 11-301, permitted and conditional uses in the industrial zoning district. Does anyone have any
I'm sorry, what page is it?
amendments
17 in the map.
to
They do.
Planning has a few minor table
But she
amendments
has the-
that the commission supported in the office industrial campus to make technical schools permitted.
Wait a minute.
where you at on page 17? Where?
Yes,
Well,
under
the tables, I mean-
table institutional uses,
Can we go?
Use?
Can we go
under
in order?
institutional uses,
Okay. Go ahead.
vocational, it says educational facility, commercial vocational, and
Okay.
to change that to permitted in the OIC was the amendment.
Okay, so you're changing it from conditional to what? Permitted?
Correct.
Okay.
Where is this?
It would be, the table lines aren't numbered, but they're grouped. It's under institutional educational facility, commercial, vocational,
4 down.
I got you. And what's the change?
permitted in OIC.
I don't have any OIC, so. Mr. Chairman, may I make a suggestion or a request?
Go ahead.
We're dealing with a table that most people sitting here don't have in front of them.
They have it.
Oh, they do?
Yes.
So everybody does. Very good. All right. Can we go in order,
Is
the way we
conditional
do
to
with
the
the page?
council or to the
Can we
BMCA?
start at the top? Yeah.
We're starting, we're
Okay.
not changing anything.
Okay, well then, I guess I've missed.
Yeah, we're staying, we're doing the same thing we've been doing.
Okay,
So
well,
can
we
go
have
to
no,
the top and come down?
Yeah.
you could do it by the topic. The first topic is residential. We have no amendments under the residential section.
Right.
And that's it from you, okay. Anyone on the council have any amendments to this?
Under residential use? Yes.
Go ahead.
Basically, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the only industrial uses I have in my 14th district are IMU, which I've never had before, and industrial 1 and a couple of, I guess, industrial 2s. So I don't have recommendations for OIC or BSC or the MIZOD. So my first recommendation for an amendment is under residential multifamily in an IMU to delete permitted and to add conditional by city council ordinance. Are you with me?
Okay, that's residential use under what?
It's under the residential use list, the category. It's dwelling multifamily.
Okay,
It's only in IMU. And I'm recommending that permitted be changed to conditional with city council ordinance.
CO?
Yeah.
Okay, what about the dwelling, since it's dwelling multifamily, it also says BSC is permitted. You okay with that?
I haven't got one recommendation about OIC or BSC.
So we're just sticking with the amendments you have, so,
And, wait a minute, I have in front of me, is Remington, is Gria gonna testify?
Yes, I was just waiting. Okay.
Come on up.
wait, Mary Pat, let's go with your amendments.
All right, let me do my residential. They have residential.
Okay,
Okay. Residential care facility, 17 persons or larger. In the IMU, I am deleting conditional by zoning board approval and leaving it blank. In other words, if it's blank, it's not permitted and it's not a conditional use. You want me to keep going all the way through all of mine? Okay.
all on page 17, go all the way through.
You're
Just like we always
saying
do.
it's not permitted at all?
That's what I'm recommending.
Okay.
These are her recommendations.
These are
so,
recommended amendments. Institutional use.
Okay,
Government facilities, public works.
okay,
In IMU. Delete the permitted and leave it blank.
okay.
In other words, no way. Okay. Homeless shelter in IMU. Delete
C.
conditional by board and leave it blank. Hospital in IMU. Delete conditional by board and add conditional by city council ordinance.
Okay.
Am I still on the right? Okay, commercial use. Body art establishment. Delete permitted and add conditional by zoning board. If you're gonna have a body art establishment, let's know what
In
it
the
is.
vernacular, is that a tattoo shop?
I don't know, it can be. It doesn't have to be.
I think it is.
I'm getting caught up in art. Is
Yes,
it-
evidently,
In case you want to stop in.
They're
That's
calling
how-
it a body art establishment. I think it's tattoos, yes. Piercing. I mean, it's not just that. It's it's things.
I mean,
Pla-
body art, it could be hairdo. I mean, I really would like to be,
In order to keep order, wait, Mary Pat, will planning give Councilwoman Spector the definition of body art? So, there's too many people talking about what the definition.
This is an early evening program.
Do you have your answer?
no, I don't, I have Mary Pat's answer. I
Yeah,
don't
well, we-
have anybody else's answer.
Laurie?
I mean, body art could be a
She's looking it
salon.
up right now. for
I want to
definition.
know what, because I am plagued with tattoo shops.
yes, body art establishment, as we've defined it, is an establishment that offers body piercing, non-medical body modifications, or tattooing. It,
Call a spade a spade.
evidently, I mean, to be honest, the reason for the change in the name is it's broadened from tattooing, and we've been told that this is the sort of proper way of calling it now,
Got it.
because it is more than just tattoos. It's piercings and other things.
I agree with Bill. We know art is, you know, what you think, what you
Let's
see.
send it to the zoning board. They'll,
You have it as permitted, right?
no,
No,
in
the table here has
IMU,
this
it
permitted.
is
The table has it as
The
permitted.
table has it as permitted. I'm asking that it be a conditional use with the zoning board's approval. So at least people know what, in this particular instance or that one, what it is. That's how you find out. Bank,
Councilwoman Spector, you good? Okay, go ahead, Councilwoman Clark.
I'm still now I'm under commercial uses, I'm sorry. And I think I'm still oh yeah. Banquet hall. In this case, I'm making two recommendations. In IMU, delete permitted and leave it blank. And in industrial 1, the light industrial, delete conditional with zoning board approval and add conditional with city council ordinance. Now, let me just,
IMUs?
you know, IMU would be, no way. And I1, which SBB, it would be, you need an ordinance.
Go to the
Now,
council.
let me just say why. So that me and banquet halls in this council and banquet halls. The big problem with banquet halls is when they are leased out to promoters and that no one that it's a promoter who manages and puts on an event, and that the owner of the facility is like not considered a responsible party. We lived through this in Baltimore. And so promoters come, they sell tickets online, they show up, people come, lots and lots and lots of people, lots of times. And you lose control of crowd control inside and outside very often. That's our experience.
I agree.
And that's why when you're going to get a banquet hall, that's what can happen and does. So you got to be careful what you're doing. That's all.
Can I expand on that? When you're talking about a banquet hall and you're talking about a wedding or something like that, a banquet hall, but you have down here the live entertainment. When
Well,
you
no,
have
I'm not there yet.
but when you have promoters, that they shouldn't be using a banquet hall. They should be under the category of live entertainment.
No. This is, promoters are not zoned, although I try to define them in the code, but a promoter is a person. And we're talking about what a building is allowed to do.
But for that person that's a promoter,
I hear what you're saying.
He's using the uses for entertainment, live entertainment. Banquet hall is for a caterer, a rite or a event that isn't necessarily entertainment.
It may be
Promoters
so-
are
may I
entertainment.
just,
Let me say this, because I don't want to get too deep in this, because
I know, but
But I
this is
agree,
important.
I agree as one person on the council and the committee, it's for it to go to us, because right now we're fighting too many loopholes that are going through American Legion and VFW, so.
But if it's
any-
a function by a promoter, it should be under the category of live entertainment.
I mean, I mean, that's her amendment.
Keep them out of a banquet
Yeah,
hall.
so
If
it's
it's a
her
promoter of sponsored event, it should be a live entertainment event.
So we understand that. So I want to go through, I don't want to spend 15, 20 minutes dissecting what a banquet hall is, but I understand what her amendment is.
why I'm recommending this.
Let's move on with,
Okay,
with your amendment.
Jill, tell me when I get to the end of page 17, because I'm working from my worksheet.
Banquet hall right now.
No.
You've done that. Go ahead.
Broadcasting station, I've got IMU
live
and
entertainment.
Industrial
For
One. Delete permitted and add approval by the zoning board. Car wash, IMU.
There's
And, excuse me, wrong.
I1.
Car wash is permitted in Industrial 1 and Industrial 2. And I have recommended deleting permitted and adding zoning board approval. Oh, a car wash has a lot of things to ask questions about. How many bays, how long, what hours, all that. And the only place anybody's gonna have a chance to do that is like at a zoning board.
Okay.
Yeah, really? Oh, that's true. All right, carry out. In an IMU, I'm recommending delete permitted, add zoning board approval. Entertainment indoor, IMU, recommending delete permitted, adding zoning board approval. Again, there's lots of great entertainment indoors. It could be somebody sitting at a piano, it could be a trio, it could be the BSO, yes. But it's nice to know what it's going to be kind of when you're saying do it. So you go to the zoning board and people explain what they're doing. Entertainment live, standalone establishment. Oh my gosh, I forgot to say where I'm doing this, but I'm doing it in IMU. Excuse me. This is IMU, delete zoning board approval and add conditional by ordinance. This is another promoter issue. Just as you said, entertainment live in a standalone establishment, like it's not like a band that's in a restaurant or something like that. It's like Badam, yeah. And that's IMU, I'm sorry. And that's me? Okay, so I'll come in at the end, after everyone else has a chance, and then come in on the next page.
So you're finished?
I'm finished with this page.
Done with, what did you say about entertainment, live secretary? Did you change that?
Yeah, I forgot to, I left out something. It's IMU, delete,
C and do CO.
correct. So can I just say, Mr. Chairman, this is the first time we've done a use chart in committee. And it says C all the time. P means permitted. But all you see otherwise is Cs, the letter C. But I have already recommended that we restore, there's two kinds of conditional uses now.
I prefer that the planning department,
And C.
prefer the planning department gives definition of that.
Oh, okay, but they don't have a CO, so I need to explain what CB and CO are.
She
I
can do
think
that.
for the purpose of these hearings, your definition makes sense. And where we have C, it would be CB, and your suggestion for CO. And I think if people understand that as we move along, we're fine with that.
Thank you very much. And I'll come back when you get to the
conditional
next
by ordinance
page.
versus conditional by board.
I'll tell you about all that later.
Can I, are we gonna do, are you gonna, oh, you do. Okay,
Councilman Clark, you got council members that want to say something.
okay.
I actually wanted to go back and ask a question about banquet halls of the law department, which is, it just occurred to me, I mean, could we redefine banquet halls so that they could only be used for private parties? And they could not be used for events that are open to the public?
We're trying to. I mean, we haven't.
Is that a policy question? Okay, so there's no reason we couldn't do it legally. We could decide whether or not we wanted to do that or not, but okay, all right.
But it's one of those determinants that if you are providing live entertainment, promoter-type entertainment.
We got to go back because this is being recorded. We're going off hook here. You got to talk into the microphone because it's got to be recorded. Let's have one person speak at a time instead of everybody jumping into other person's conversations. Yeah, go ahead.
So the question was whether we could define banquet hall in a certain way, anyway, in a different way than what we have here. There's nothing in the law that's coming to me at the moment would prohibit such a thing. Yeah. And your question, Councilwoman?
To me, to distinguish the facility for a promoter would be the live entertainment. The use of a banquet hall would be arranged for a festivity like a wedding or a reunion or a family dinner or something that was part of it was, or the purpose of it was not for a performance provided by a promoter.
So once again, you're asking a definitional question, whether you can define it in a certain way. And you know, yeah, I mean, from a legal standpoint, nothing's coming to my mind that would suggest otherwise. I mean, there may be practical difficulties that the planning would have, but I mean, from my perspective at the moment. And I'll have to think about this, but nothing comes to mind at the moment.
Thank you.
For future discussion, may I just say that we have a proposed redefinition of banquet hall way back in Title I, so.
Yeah, go ahead.
Say that
Councilman
again, Mary
Kraft,
Okay, so staying on this page 17, and starting here. Now, I have not looked at the entire map at every piece of property that is bordering the Mizod, but I have seen enough to know that it's not just I-2 and I-1. There are some, I think, C2s. I think there's some OICs bordering the Mizod. So when we're talking about creating buffers, there are certain places in the Mizod where there will literally not be a quote-unquote buffer. It is going to be right up against residential communities. So where we can attempt to preserve it, we should. So using that as sort of where I want to hang my coat for a second, I'm looking at the institutional usages right now. And so I look at an educational facility, a commercial vocational facility as a conditional use to the board. And I'm looking at government offices as conditional use to the board in the I-2 and even within the Mizod. We all know that a conditional use to the board is a permitted use. So what we're basically saying here is that a VOTEC is going to be an educational facility, commercial VOTEC, is going to be a permitted use in the Mizod, and government offices are going to be permitted uses in the Mizod. And my question is, do we really want to allow that? You know, do you want a government office building? Do you want the potentiality for a government office complex within the MISOD?
I think, for the record, some of these things are there. We certainly agree with the sentiment that we wanted to create as much of a buffer as possible, but there are just existing situations where there are literally houses that are there today, and we did the best we could. But
well,
we would,
then maybe we
certainly
grandfather them in, but we don't create the ability to put new ones in there.
Right.
So, you know,
I think we would defer to the industrial users, many of whom are here today on that. The reason we put those as conditional is because they exist and they typically go along with the businesses. For example, training schools and VOTEC schools are often located right in the industrial areas because that's what works for those businesses. The Maryland Port Administration has offices in the MISOD. So frankly, I think there are probably folks here more knowledgeable than we are, and we would defer
I'd like to hear
them
from
on
them
that.
at some point, because the other thing is, you know, if all of a sudden the city of Baltimore or the state of Maryland decided that they could buy land cheaply within the MISOD and put government offices in there, particularly the state of Maryland, you know, I could see them very quickly taking land and using it for government offices if they thought they could.
We have no objection to the deletion. I think I would let the users themselves speak.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna recommend deletion of those conditional uses in both the I-2 and the MI for the government offices, and I'll hear from the industry folks on the VOTEC aspect of it as to what they want to do on that. But we can hear from them in a little while because I have some other stuff. But I would recommend deleting the conditional uses in I-2 and in MI for government offices and leave it blank.
Okay.
My next one is car washes as a permitted use. I'm just going to join on. A Councilwoman Clark has already addressed that in her 180 in her amendment with regard to in the IMU as a permitted going to conditional board. Again, to looking at a car wash in an I-2, you know, is it a practical usage? I can see where we have truck washes, but to put a car wash as in an I-2 when you're right up against industrial users, it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, it may, you know, who's going to want to get their car washed when you're dumping coal next to it? You know, it doesn't make any sense. And somebody's going to come in and they're going to ask for it, and the board's going to give it to them because it's a conditional use, and then within 6 months they're going to be coming and screaming because they want us to shut down the industrial user next door because they can't operate their business.
We have no objection to the deletion. Again, I would defer to the industry on that.
Okay, so we would recommend deleting that one, just taking it out.
Oh, taking the car wash
Out as a permitted in I-2, taking it out.
Just
leave it
blank.
and-
Just leave it blank.
Right.
Okay.
And then my next one, and I know I saw this somewhere else, and this is daycare, and I know this is sensitive, but adult or child daycare in the I-2 and in the MI. I can see it as being a potential accessory use, but to just be...
You want to read the footnote at the bottom of the table that limits the daycare.
Yeah, I saw that when secondary to large research and development and manufacturing uses, but I know that we have, I mean, I know that someone asked about having a playground at the Canton, at the shops at Canton Crossing. They put a playground there, and they were told they couldn't put a playground there because it was on a brownfield site. And so, you know, I don't know whether people are necessarily going to want to put daycare or some of these.
The concept here, for example, would be if Amazon, with their 24-hour operation and many employees, wants to have an employee-based daycare center, this is the condition that would allow it.
As an
only
accessory
limited
to their use, as an accessory to their use, not a straight out permitted use.
Again, the footnote is integrated into larger development to serve the employees. It's not for the general public to bring their children.
I want to have more discussion about that.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. That's it. All I have right now on this.
Councilman Henry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is just sort of a general comment to all of my colleagues on the committee. I would ask you to consider that whenever there are individual uses that may have been recommended as permitted that you do not want in your district, that you consider maybe amending it to conditional by ordinance rather than taking it out entirely, because there may be places where it would be appropriate. There may not be any that are around you, but rather than eliminating it as a use entirely, conditional by ordinance gives the flexibility for it to be done where it may actually work.
Almost everything I've talked about relates to the MIZOD. And my position is with regard to the MIZOD, regardless of where it's located.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Fraley, you got amendments?
Sure. Jeff Fraley, SBBA again. Daycare center, adult or child under commercial use. The SBBA proposes to strike P2 from districts I1, I2, and MI and replace it with conditional ordinance. We also agree with Councilman Henry that this is going to be a case-by-case issue. It's going to be sensitive to the needs of the major operators that are 24 hours a day. And if they do decide to provide an amenity such as daycare for their employees, we feel that it should be looked at by you guys on a case-to-case basis and determined in that fashion. If there is chromium in the ground, maybe there's not an outdoor facility for the children, but it should certainly be looked at by the Land Use Committee, City Council, especially in the MIZOD area.
Okay. That's the only three.
That's the only thing we have on page 17.
Okay. Anyone else have any amendments? Wait a minute, is this an amendment to the?
But it covers page 17 and 18.
It's what?
Page 17 and 18 are just amendments.
17.
Okay, table 17? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. On page 7, I'm Ryan Flanagan. I'm the Vice President of the Greater Remington Improvement Association.
Okay.
Committee members, we are fine with the vast majority of the category. We'd like to point out, and I'll be specifically talking about only the IMU category today. We're fine with the I1 category as it exists. The IMU category, though, we'd like to make sure that row houses are permitted use. They right now are left blank, I believe, in the IMU category. We'd also like to say that multifamily, we'd also like to leave permitted as it stands. And would you like us to move on to page 18 for other?
No, we're on 17 right now.
Well, then that's our only amendment for page 17 then. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on page 17? Now we're on page 18. Planning have any amendments on page 18?
No.
No? Okay, planning don't have any amendments. Mr. Fraley, I know you, do you have, you're good, right, Laurie? Yeah. Mr. Fraley?
Again, Jeff Fraley, South Baltimore Business Alliance, page 18, use office, districts I1, I2, and MI. South Baltimore Business Alliance proposes to strike P and replace with conditional.
Okay. Now,
I'm
when
sorry.
we're saying condition,
I'm sorry.
are you saying the BMZA or are you saying with the council?
We're proposing with the council, with the I'm sorry, we're proposing to have the BMZA look at it now.
So you are proposing BMZA?
Yes.
For offices?
That's office. On I-1, I-2, and MI, they're striking P3, 4, P3, 4, P3, 4, and going with conditional by the zoning board. Is that
Right.
correct?
Right, and if you look back, that's a commercial use office.
Just want to keep the footnote requirement, whether it's conditional or permitted. I think the footnote is critical that any office be
Okay, that's all-
carry to
okay.
the principal industrial use.
Right, we only propose to strike P and keep the footnote.
Keep it
Okay.
what?
Keep the footnotes 3 and 4 so that it applies to the existing structure, the
So you
existing
wanna-
industrial
so you wanna
use.
keep it,
Keep the footnote, strike the P. We're okay with that.
It would then be C34, C34, and C34.
okay, all right, okay.
Under industrial use, alternative energy, commercial, the MI district, we propose to insert
industrial general?
permitted use, excuse me,
Industrial general,
industrial use, alternative energy, commercial. Under the MI district, we propose to allow that to be permissible in the MI district.
okay,
Just below that, compost and commercial, we also propose for the MI district for that use to be permissible.
okay.
If
All
you
right.
scroll, if
Go
you
ahead.
scroll down to industrial general, we motion to strike conditional in the MI district and replace it with permissible. If you scroll down to materials recovery facility, in the MI district, we motion to insert permissible. And that's all of our amendments for page 18.
Okay. Thank you. Any, yeah, Laurie?
This is maybe minor, and we could work that out, but the materials recovery facility and the composting commercial, the reason we did not make them permitted is there is a likely conflict with the Chesapeake Bay critical area law, and that those types of uses are not permitted under the critical area. Most of the MISOD is Chesapeake Bay critical area. They have environmental implications, and that was the reason they were not permitted. We can double check
Yeah,
that.
so that's federal,
State law.
state law? Okay. Which would
And it is
supersede this.
referenced in Title VII, but we will double check again, but that's the reason they were not permitted.
Okay, so you'll send that back to the
We'll-
committee?
We will double check and get back to the committee.
Can you also CC SBBA on that?
Yes, of
Appreciate it.
course.
Or big? Okay, all right.
Mhm.
Are we done? So Councilwoman Clark,
Okay,
do you have amendments?
a couple, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, IMU, heavy retail rental or service. I'm on page 18. Heavy retail rental or service in IMU, industrial mixed use. Delete permitted, leave blank. These are all recommendations. Medical dental clinic in IMU, delete permitted by, and add conditional by city council ordinance. Okay, motor vehicle service and repair major. In IMU, delete permitted by right and leave blank. The committee has copies of this, most people do. Outdoor dining in industrial mixed use. Delete permitted and add conditional use by the zoning board, which, as my colleague says, means permitted, right? But at least you know there's a chance to negotiate, there's a chance to find out and put things on the record. Personal services establishment in IMU, delete permitted, add conditional by zoning board. The only way you can be sure that you'll find out what personal establishment, what kind of service is being recommended, et cetera, is to at least have to go to the zoning board, so people have to, write out what they're doing. So it goes to the zoning board. Restaurant, in industrial mixed use, delete permitted and add conditional by zoning board. Again, that pretty well means if they appeal, they'll get it, but at least some negotiations and knowledge can be added to the mix. I think I might have gone over my page 18. Did I
No,
get
you
beyond?
still got, I think you got retail goods.
Okay, yeah,
Did she do that? No, you got retail goods.
No alcohol sales.
retail goods, no alcohol sales. In IMU, I'm deleting, I'm recommending all these things, permitted, and adding conditional by the zoning board. And also, in the I-1, the industrial 1, light industrial district, I'm recommending deleting zoning board approval and just leaving it blank. I just don't see the mix too well. Retail goods with alcohol sales, in IMU, delete conditional board approval and add city council approval. In industrial 1, delete zoning board conditional use approval and leave it blank. I think that is.
No, you're still good.
Am I still on my?
Yeah.
Tavern's my next one.
Keep going.
Okay. In IMU, delete conditional by board approval and add conditional by city council ordinance. Tavern means a lot of different things, and we don't want to have to fight it out without having a chance, really. In industrial 1 and industrial 2, delete zoning board conditional use and leave it blank for tavern. Industrial uses, okay. In industrial 1, delete zoning board conditional use, leave it blank. In industrial 2, delete zoning board conditional approval and add, wait a minute, I did that wrong.
This is
Already did that.
posting, right?
Oh, yeah. And this is composting, I'm sorry, commercial. Delete it in industrial 1 and add conditional by zoning board, by city council approval. That was a mistake on my typing. Delete CB, add CO. Heliport. In industrial 1, delete zoning board approval and leave it blank. In industrial 2, delete zoning board approval and add conditional with city council ordinance. I have 2 more in my whole list. Materials recovery facility. In I-2, delete permitted, add conditional with ordinance approval, the city council. And finally, passenger terminal. In IMU, delete permitted and leave it blank. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else on page 18?
Hello again, Ryan Flanagan, Greater Remington Improvement Association. We concur with Councilwoman Clark that heavy retail, rental, or service be deleted in the IMU category. Also in the IMU category, we believe that motor vehicle service and repair major be deleted as well. We have too many of those already in our neighborhood. We do not need more. Thank you. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else on page 18? Councilman Kraft?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, what I'd like to do is ask the industrial folks, and they don't have to do it today, but they have these charts in front of them right now, and I'd like to ask them to look at these permitted uses and conditional uses in the I-2s, in the maritime, and let us know what your thoughts are about whether we should keep these in as conditional uses with the board, whether they should be conditional uses by ordinance, whether they should be permitted, or we should take them out and just not allow them at all. So if you could review these pages 17, 18, and 19, I know, because it's going to apply to page 19 also, but if you could look at those pages and then let us know what you think about those categories. Like I say, you don't have to do it tonight, but you can take it home, take a look at them, and then talk among yourselves, and then get back to us and give us the feedback so we know exactly how you're looking at all of this, okay? Thank you, Mr.
Good
Chairman.
idea. Okay, we're on page 19.
I don't have any changes. Oh, because there's hardly anything.
Planning, do you have any amendments on page 19? No? Any of my colleagues have?
I have a question. I overlooked this somehow, but well, I'm not sure it's a question. I have a statement that I would like planning to respond to. And that is other uses, and it's on page 19, other uses, IMU parking structure permitted.
The principal use?
They're all,
The reason,
it's principal uses unless otherwise noted.
yeah,
I'm sorry, I don't know how I didn't get this into my list, but
many of the industrial buildings, what we're seeing in their reuse is the ability to put in parking in their buildings, lower level, like the Highlandtown Middle School, or, I mean, that's not an industrial building, but I'm trying to think, it's similar situations where you take an older building, and in order to make the use above marketable, you're parking in the structure of the building, and that is the reason for that.
well, this is a principal use. No, we're not talking an accessory
Oh, I'm
use
sorry.
to housing.
Not accessory,
We're
yes.
talking about, like, here stands a garage. And without, like, as much as a zoning board hearing. So I'd like to recommend for the record,
I think, yes.
No.
And actually, there are some comments
CO.
throughout. I'd like to work with the committee in numerous of the tables on that parking structure principal use, because I think we made some errors in that, and it was intended
Can
to
you
be.
say that again?
Thanks.
Well,
I think what we
know, she's
probably
a good
would
person.
recommend is that we break it into two parts: parking structure principal use versus parking structure accessory use, and then treat them differently, because there are some unique circumstances, and we could do that for each table.
could, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate that, that comment. And I just, for the record, for now, I am proposing that we delete P and substitute CO by ordinance. I know we'll get back to it, but there's so many things to keep track of. And I just as soon have it in the record, thanks.
You put it in the record, and then we're going to do a sit-down. Is that good?
Thank you, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have okay, Mr. Frail, Jeff, you have.
Jeff
page
Fraley
19.
again, South Baltimore Business Alliance. To be clear, Councilwoman Clark, your proposal was to
IMU.
insert CO in the I1, I2, and MI districts for parking lot principal use.
Actually, I was thinking of IMU, but I think we need control of parking structures. I mean, the idea that this is a principal use, that they can just pop up without a blink,
Right.
except some permit. Yeah, I mean, and the reason I'm restricting myself to IMU and I1 and I2 is that that's what I have in my district. So I know, I feel comfortable making recommendations. Yes, I'm recommending it in all three.
I understand.
To be by city council ordinance. And then I know we're gonna come back and maybe even change what this is, but for now,
I'm recommending it in all of them, subject to further discussion.
I think you'll find, oh, in all of them?
In all of them.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm recommending them across the board, subject to further discussion from OIC all the way to MI.
So the whole thing?
Right, pending further discussion.
Okay, so,
Yeah. CO, all the way across, pending, pending further discussion.
We'll sit down
on
and
them.
discuss it.
Okay, thank you. The SBBA proposes to research and development, districts I1, I2, and MI to strike P. Resource recovery facility in the MI district. We would like to insert a C here as a conditional use. Recycling and refuse collection facility. We would like to insert a C into the MI zone. Truck stop.
That's right here.
We would like to insert a P into the MI zone. Truck terminal. We'd like to insert a P into the MI zone. And last but not least, wholesale goods establishment. We'd like to remove the P in districts I1 and I2 and replace with a CO.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Anyone else have?
can I ask what? Do you know what?
BJ's.
You said it.
I got it. Thanks.
It's John's. That's it.
Okay.
It's got his initials on it.
Page 19, any other amendments? Anything? No? That right? Concludes it, right? Yeah. Okay, that, right on dot, 7 o'clock. That, where's the,
BJ's.
Okay, I knew there were two reasons, but I didn't know what it was.
Our next work session is on City Council Bill 12-0152, Transform Baltimore zoning, is Wednesday, October 29th at 10 a.m. Thank you all for attending today's Land Use and Transportation Committee work session. Please check the area around you and your seat to make sure that everything you brought, you take with you. Thank you.